Hi folks, it's Evo here from Thundermist Lure Company, and what a day we have today. The sun's out, it's early morning, and we're going to be crankbaiting today, and the target is smallmouth bass. Today I'm going to run a crayfish style crankbait, and the reason for that is these smallies have been feeding on bait fish all spring, and now they're on the crayfish feed, so I'm going to run this crayfish imitator crankbait, and we're working shallow water here. It's about 10 to 12 feet. And what we're going to do is basically work these crankbaits and see if we can't hook into a smallie. One thing to keep in mind with these crankbaits, once they hit the water, they start to dive down. They're going to hit their maximum depth and then come back up towards the boat. So what you want to do is you want to get that crankbait to dive down to its deepest depth as quick as possible. So in order to do so, what you do is put your rod tip right down close to the water like so and start cranking right away. And that'll allow your bait to get down there quicker, and also it puts you in a great position to set the hook. When your rod is down here, once you get a hit, you can easily set the hook like so. So there's a couple advantages of doing it that way. Well, there's our first one of the day. He's just a little guy. I don't even think I'm gonna use the net to land him. There we go. Well, there's a good start. Nothing big, but a nice little smallie. Lots of fun on these crankbaits. Little guy. Okay, we're going to go back at him, get this crayfish crankbait out there, and keep cranking. Another thing to keep in mind when cranking, once you cast it out there, let it sit just for 1 second. If there's a bass in the neighborhood, he's seen that splash, he's got his eyes on it. Then you start cranking, and what will happen a lot of times is those bass will come right up and hit that bait once they see it going. Also, if you're not catching fish and you're cranking a certain speed, try slowing it down a bit or speeding your speed up a bit. Crank a little faster. Find out what those fish want, and then tailor your retrieve to what their liking is. And thirdly, the other thing you could do when you're cranking, you can have a little bit of fun with it. So once you get your line down there, you can give the odd little twitch in between cranks just to stir things up again. And again, find out what the fish are after, find out how aggressive they are, and work your retrieve to match the aggressiveness of the fish. I'm fishing with my brother-in-law Tony today, and he's just hooked into another small bass. Looks like that's what we're catching today, folks. Small bass, but that's okay. We're having lots of fun. Crankbaiting fish, crankbaiting smallies. Beautiful day, the sun's out, you can't beat it. Another thing you want to do when you're cranking, especially when you're fishing clear water like this, you want to cast as far away from the boat as possible. The reason for that is the fish won't be spooked as they're coming close to the boat, and secondly, you're also covering a lot more ground that way. So there's many good reasons to cast as far as you can, and in order to do so, if you have a longer rod, you'll get further casts. With I'm using a 6-foot rod today, but ideally a 7-foot rod will get me out there that much further, and that's what I would recommend for cranking. 7-foot rod. Get your casts out there as far as you can, begin the retrieves, and start catching fish. Little guy Tony. Oh, he's peeling drag. Nice. Notice how Tony's put his rod down. If you don't want that bass to jump, keep your rod tip pointing down, and you'll force that bass to swim down. Now mind you, if you put your rod tip up and you want to have some fun, you'll force them up to the boat. But that doesn't look like a bass, Tony. That's Mr. Sheephead.
Monster one.
Oh, you put a tube on. You took the crankbait off, you put a tube on, and you got Mr. Sheephead. Well, you can catch those sheephead. I'm going to go back after Mr. Smallie. Another thing to keep in mind when crankbaiting, a lot of times you'll have fish follow your crankbait but not hit. When that happens, be prepared with another bait, and as you can see here, I've got a rod rigged with a tube. So if I happen to notice a fish following my crankbait but not hitting, I'll drop that line, grab this one quick, and toss that tube out to him. 9 times out of 10, that fish will hit. There's another one, hey Tony?
Yeah, smaller one.
Little guy? Crankbait?
Little spinner.
Oh, you changed to a spinnerbait, okay, good idea. All we've been catching are small fish this morning, folks. Another little guy. You know what, that might just be the order of the day, small fish. That's okay, we're gonna keep having fun, I love it. Till next time, folks, good luck, keep cranking, and good fishing. Actually, folks, before we sign off, I gotta tell you about this one. I was throwing that little frog crankbait in the shallow water, and I had this bass come up after it and swim away, exactly as we were talking about earlier, and I gave him the 1-2 punch. He swam away, I dropped my rod here, I just put this rod down with the frog, dropped the tube down, and he came right at the tube and hammered it. Beautiful, you gotta love that. That is what we call, that's what we call the 1-2 punch. Always, always, always. Keep a tube handy and get ready for those follow-up fish. Okay, now we'll sign off, folks. Till next time, good fishing. One last thing, folks, feel free to sign up to our videos by pushing the button found on this page. It'll either be on the left or on the right. We move it around from time to time, but we've got a lot of fine fishing ahead of us, and we hope to share some more good times with you.